Squalane and squalene are not the same thing, and so many people get this wrong, and it could actually be harming your skin. Speaking about people who struggle with acne or inflammation or irritation. So what is the difference between squalane oil and squalene oil? Just that one letter.
Just one.
When it comes to spelling, when it comes to chemistry, the difference is in the hydrogens. There are 50 in squalene and 62 in squalane. Now, that seems like a very simple difference, but it actually makes a huge impact on your skin and on our cosmetic products. And we are going to break down the science and talk about why. These are both oils, but they are pretty different, especially because one is made naturally by our skin. Squalene is made by you and me. We always talk about sebum, this oil that our skin produces. And that sebum is made up of a whole bunch of things: cholesterol, fatty acids, triglycerides, etc. Well, squalene is one component of that. Studies have shown that around 12% of the skin's oil is made up of squalene, and that can be as high as 20%. And fun fact, they actually did research studies looking at the backs of children and compared the backs of children to skin on adults and other areas of the body. And they actually found some very interesting things about the concentration of cholesterol versus this squalene oil in kids versus in adults, and what that might mean for our graceful aging beauty routines for those of us who do have more mature skin. Now, outside of children's backs, your face, and my face, squalene is also made by sharks, specifically in their livers, and that's actually how squalene got its name. Dr. Mitsumaru Sumijimoto was a Japanese researcher, and in the 1900s, he was the first guy to both find and isolate this squalene oil. But thankfully, science has found other places to get squalene, such as from olives or rice bran, so that we don't have to kill more endangered species, which, by the way, brings us to today's sponsor, sharks. The sharks of the Pacific Northwest want you to know that they are not these vicious, dangerous creatures that Jaws and the likes of Discovery Channel's Shark Week makes them out to be. Although there are many different types of sharks, some species that are more aggressive than others, most sharks do not search for active, healthy prey. They are not looking for you on a surfboard. Statistically speaking, did you know that you are more likely to get harmed by getting shot by lightning than actually being attacked by a shark? That's right, there's about a 1 in 80,000 chance that you will get a bolt of lightning to the bootay versus a 1 in 3.7 million chance that you will get attacked by a shark. And considering the great amount of sharks and dolphins that humans regularly sweep up when they are just putting down their nets in the ocean to get fish for fancy dinners, sharks are way more harmed than we are, and we need to do something about it. So this video is brought to you by sharks that you should not get your skincare oil from. Now that we've got that out of the way, yes, there are plant-derived versions of squalene, such as olives and rice bran, that you should absolutely look for. Please make sure that your skincare is always plant-based, and you can do this by seeing whether or not it's vegan, and that ensures that you're not hurting the sharks. The purpose of squalene in skin is to help protect it. Remember, our skin waterproofs us, and this squalene that's created inside of that little oil gland and pushed out to the top, it acts as an antioxidant. It protects our skin from the environment, from free radicals, a little bit from the sun, but it's not like a major sun protection factor, but even from things like pollution. And it actually helps our skin to stay waterproof and a little bit shiny. It gives us that healthy glow. So it is an antioxidant. It's a polyunsaturated fat, but because of that polyunsaturation, it's not that stable, which means that it can actually go rancid pretty easily. Squalene can oxidize, that same oxidation that happens to your vitamin C. Now, squalene is not as unstable as vitamin C, but squalene is pretty unstable. And that means that when squalene is introduced to light, to heat, to oxygen, to those UV rays, it can actually degrade. And when it does, it can cause irritation or damage to some people's skin. When squalene gets oxidized, it becomes squalene peroxide, and some medical studies have actually shown that this might contribute to acne. We know that one component of acne is this inflammation. It causes this irritation, this redness, this swelling of the skin, and that's mainly due to byproducts that the bacteria that eats the oil starts to produce within the skin. But it also appears that this peroxidated squalene might contribute to that inflammation as well. And so for people with acne-prone skin, even though our skin makes it naturally, it's actually not highly recommended. But what if you don't have acne? What if you have mature skin? Well, the skin actually produces less squalene as we get older, and by around the age of 30, that can actually drop off quite a bit. Some people, as they get older, as their bodies, their biology, and their hormones change, do tend to deal with more dry skin, and one component of that could be the loss of squalene in our skin's natural sebum. So squalene could be wonderful for someone who's struggling with a little bit of dryness or for someone who does have more mature skin. Thankfully, there has been a lot of research done on the components of human skin oil, this sebum, and the other things in there outside of squalene, such as cholesterol and fatty acids. And back to that study where they looked at children's backs, they saw that children's skin had more cholesterol and squalene than more adult skin, and that ratio of cholesterol was higher, meaning that if you are worried about maturing skin and you do have some fine lines and wrinkles, you want to make sure that you're using products like sunscreen to prevent that, or products to treat them like retinoids. But you might also want to consider adding creams that do have plant-based sources of cholesterol and, yes, squalene. So we've spoken a lot about the squalene that our skin naturally creates, but what about the squalane? And why is squalane in so many more skincare products? Well, again, the main difference is that A, but it's not just that A, it's what that A represents. Hydrogenation. You've probably heard of hydrogenation when it comes to oils that you cook with, or heart health, your arteries, trans fats, etc. But what exactly is a hydrogenated oil, and how is squalane different from squalene? Does it come from the kidneys of koalas? No, it does not. Squalane is actually squalene that has been hydrogenated. It literally comes from this thing, but we've just shoved a bunch of hydrogens in it. That's what hydrogenation is. When we look at these two structures chemically, can you see how there's a double bond on the squalene? This double bond means that it is unsaturated. It's more of a liquid. But if it is fully saturated, that means that every single bond is connected to a hydrogen. It is fully saturated. It's saturated with that hydrogen, just the way a sponge might soak up water. This is our molecule soaking up all of the hydrogen to be a hydrogenated oil. We say bye-bye double bonds, and we just saturate it with all of those hydrogens. And that's why this one has 62 hydrogens and this one's only got 50. This is a much heavier molecule. There are 6 double bonds that have gone through that conversion, and that actually has an impact on how this oil feels on the skin or in the hands if you isolate it. When you think of a hydrogenated oil, it's a saturated or trans fatty acid, whereas the unhydrogenated ones are unhydrogenated, unsaturated, a little bit more liquidy. This really impacts how they feel on the skin. When specifically speaking about the hydrogenated ones, we have partially and fully hydrogenated. A lot of that comes into food and nutrition and cooking. And if it's partially hydrogenated, that's actually a trans fatty acid. But when it's fully hydrogenated, that's what we've got here. Both of these types of oils are generally solid or semi-solid at room temperature, which means that they're really great to work with when it comes to creating a fluffy moisturizer or a nice texture. Whereas the unhydrogenated fatty acids are more of a liquid at room temperature. You probably use them a lot when you're cooking. And being unhydrogenated, they spread a lot more thinly on the skin and can have a different texture. Now, unfortunately, we don't get to use these things in singularity when they're in products. Even when they're in a liquid form, they're usually combined with other things. And the way that the texture or the formula feels on skin is going to depend heavily on what else is in that formula. And there is a reason that most skincare uses squalane and not squalene. First, I want to give you an actual visual of how this works. And instead of me explaining it, I want to introduce you to Applied Science. He did this awesome video explaining the differences between hydrogenated and unhydrogenated oils. And he actually hydrogenated oils right in front of our eyes. But the example that he uses is like a pile of sticks. There's a lot of sticks, but there's a lot of space in between. Whereas you could have the same material, the same wood, that's really compacted and it's put into these flat panels of wood. And those flat panels of wood can actually be stacked much more tightly together. And that's why if they're hydrogenated or stacked tightly together, they have a more solid texture or feel. Whereas the more liquidy, unhydrogenated oils are more like that ball of sticks. There's a lot of air in between. There's a lot of these kinks within the molecule, which gives it that lighter, more liquidy texture. Thanks, Applied Science, who probably has no idea who I am, but I think your channel is great. And if you ever see it, just know that I am a fan and I appreciate you helping to educate the masses, and I really enjoyed your hydrogenation. This video is also sponsored by Applied Science. Go watch Applied Science today. Just kidding, it's not actually sponsored, but hey, if you know any awesome YouTubers that you want me to collab with, please let me know, because I would love to collab with Applied Science. And if you want to go to the comment section and kindly request it, I would be happy. I would be very happy. So we got squalane and we've got squalene, but which one is better for our skin? And why is squalane used so often in cosmetics? Well, remember that squalane is the stabilized version. That hydrogenation makes it more stable, so it's less prone to breaking down by the sun, by oxygen, by light, the way that squalene is, which means that it's a lot easier to formulate with. It's a lot easier to package, and it lasts longer when it's in a product or on shelf. themselves. Whereas squalene is wonderful, our skin makes it naturally, but it can have some of those downsides like shelf life. Now, if you do have mature skin, if you have fine lines or wrinkles, squalene gets lost naturally as we age, so it would be a great idea to put some of this squalene back into your face. But remember how it can break down. If you have acne, or if you do have inflammation, eczema, or an irritation-prone skin type, you're probably gonna wanna go with squalane because of that stability. They are extremely similar, and again, in isolation, one might be a little bit thicker, it might be more of a solid than the liquid one, but whenever these are put into products, they're formulated with many other ingredients. So the final texture really is not going to emulate whether or not the oil is hydrogenated. It's really going to depend on some of the main ingredients in there. I like squalene better for mature skin, maybe some dry skin types, and I like squalane better for oily skin types, people who do have acne, people who are struggling a bit more with inflammation in their skin. And remember that as oils, both of these are going to smooth over those top layers of the skin. They're going to be very, very lubricating. If you use enough of the oil, it can give you a little bit of a shine, but they're also going to help moisturize the skin, meaning if you have a hydrator like a water-based product or a water-based serum that you put on underneath, these oils can really lock them in. Now, different oils also have different textures. Some oils can have a more dry texture, where some are more of a slippery, greasy texture. And again, a lot of that is going to depend on what other ingredients are inside of these products. So it does depend on the formula, but a lot of what we see in the cosmetic world is squalane because of its stability and the way it's used. Now, I do have some favorite products such as Biossance, and of course such as The Ordinary. There's also this one from Indeed Labs. And I'd love to know if you'd want me to do a compare and contrast of these different textures, the weights and the feels, so that I can try and buy them so that you don't have to. In the past, we've done ranking systems for like vitamin C, ranking the best to worst, as well as niacinamide. Let me know if you want me to do one on squalane and squalene oil. And speaking of, those still are so similar that they can be really hard to remember.
We are not the same person. And it has always been that way.
Yeah. No,
You know,
yeah.
from...
It has.
It has.
I want to leave you with a little trick to remember this. Remember that squalane is the hydrogenated version of squalene that our skin naturally produces. So the way I want you to remember this is there is a squalene molecule. It looks like a little shark, and it is leaning up against your sebaceous gland, that oil gland in your skin. And when the squalene leans upon the sebaceous gland, it squirts squalene out onto your skin. Now the squalene walks down the lane, so therefore it is squalane, to go to work where it gets hydrogenated. That hydrogenation allows it to get to work, and it has to walk down the lane to get there. So the squalene that's made naturally by our skin, a little bit of leaning, walks down the lane, and that squalane is hydrogenated, where it does a lot of work in cosmetic products and in the cosmetic industry, and therefore in and on our faces. Let me know if that makes sense. I hope so. Let me know if that helps. Also, I know I'm holding up both of these. These are both squalane, just because squalene is really hard to come by, but there are some products like Juice Beauty that has a really good squalene. It's also vegan and cruelty-free.
No sharks were harmed in the filming of this TikTok.
Anyways, don't f with the sharks, don't f with cats either, and always remember to be beautiful inside and out. Do you see the memes at the end of the video? Because we are on a mission to collect them all and put them in our little bubble skincare Pokeball. And I cannot wait to see your collection of memes if you want to share them with me on Instagram or if you're on Discord. And I cannot wait to see you in this next video. Love you guys. Bye.